One. Well, that's what's up. Okay, so welcome back. I know it's been years, but we are back with the Seek Therapy podcast. It's your girl, Jasmine. I know it's been a while, and by a while, I mean 2 years. But we are back and we have some new exciting co-hosts that are also mental health therapists. So I'm gonna let whoever would like to start first just kind of let the people know who you are, because they don't know you. I'm gonna have to call. Okay, Jasmine.
All right, I'm Jasmine Ty. I'm here living in Houston, Texas. I am currently finishing up graduate school in clinical mental health counseling. I'm specializing in both military cultures and families, as well as crisis and trauma. Yeah, I enjoy mental health because I first started as the client, really had some breakthroughs through counseling, and here I am as a professional wanting to serve and give back and really connect with communities that haven't always been uh, put on spotlight in mental health. And I feel like now is that time. We made it.
Yes.
My name is America. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of North Carolina. My specialties are depression, anxiety, and trauma, but my focus really is on Black women and Black mental health. And so I am
Right.
here because I also have been a client. I tell people all the time, especially when working with trauma clients, that I also have a high ACEs score. And so a lot of those life experiences and childhood experiences led me to this particular place so that I'm able to serve folks who are experiencing similar things that I experienced as a child and as an adult.
Yes. So we have a nice little scope here of mental health. And so I'm so excited about what we are going to be doing, how we're going to go about this and all of the new episodes that we have for everyone. So I know that's been a while, but let's get into our check in. What has been our highlight? What has been our challenge? I can start. My challenge this week was that my daughter and I were sick. We were supposed to start the pod last week, but sickness. And so, although I don't sound 100%, I sound 80% better than I did. So that was the challenge, just both of us being sick. And then me still having to be a mom. Oh, that's right. Y'all don't know that I'm a mom. Um, so there's that. Yes, I have a baby, and we both were sick. So that was a challenge. And then my highlight is that I finally heard back about a job that I applied to. And so I'm going to have my interview this week. And then also, I got a new therapist, and that has been going amazing. So, what
Congratulations.
about, thank you. What about you, girl, America? What's been your highlight? What's been your challenge?
My highlight for this week has really just been trying to lean more into practicing what I preach. And so
Mm.
making sure that I am doing the same things that I tell my clients to do. And it works. It's crazy.
Right. It's so
That,
crazy.
Applied technique.
who would have thought? So that has been my highlight. I've really been intentional and I've been very consistent this week in the ways that I chose to show up for myself despite everything else that was going on. And I would say the challenge is everything that's going on. So managing client flow, managing their needs, but also making sure that I'm managing my own business aspect, personal, all of that good stuff have been some of the challenges.
Right, right. And what about you, our other Jasmine?
For me, the highlights overall has been I turned 30 at the end of the month. And the last 2 years especially, but really my 20s started off with trauma. And that trauma has shaped the last decade. And so it's really a highlight of, I've been, I guess, putting a lot of pressure on myself that like the time is coming. And I can say going into the second week of June, inching closer, it may just be my procrastinating spirit. But I'm finally kind of on that page of like, it's my life, it's my timeline, and it's my strength. I'm not the girl I was 9 years ago, 10 years ago. So yeah, and I've been doing a lot of reading. One of the books I wanted to bring with me was Level Up, Boosting Your Mental Health Boot Camp. So like boosting what we find challenging in ourselves and kind of, you know, something that, like America said, applying what you would maybe say to a client, practicing that resilience and that grit. Challenge-wise, I've been kind of floating between loving the people around us and not wanting to step into like a counseling role with them, and just
Them
being
boundaries.
right. And I've had there's a few close family members that are just going through some dark times, and it's me just learning that in this space for them, being a shoulder is the best I can offer. It's not saying anything at all and just listening. So it's been a rewarding challenge, I'll say that.
Yeah. And so you kind of touched on, I'm not sure if that's what you were planning on having as your new, but you kind of touched on something new that you've kind of been reading. And so what was the title of that book so I can go ahead and add that to my Amazon cart?
It's pretty long. So it's 100 exercises to boost your resilience, determination, and grit. Level Up Your Mental Toughness Boot Camp by Michelle Ribeiro.
100 exercises. That's where I'm at. 100 exercises.
It's definitely not like a sit down and conquer the book. It's definitely something you read maybe the first section, apply that. Once you feel comfortable, you pick it up again. And that's the way I'm going about it.
Yeah. And that is how I always tell people to kind of conquer things. Because if you have this huge goal and you try to attack it, sometimes that will leave you kind of feeling overwhelmed. And so just breaking it down and having it be more digestible. So I love that. Was there any other new that you had, or that's what you wanted to tell the folks about?
For right now, just a little taste.
Okay. And do you have a new to share with everyone, America?
No, I don't have a new. Well, I do think I have a new. I think my new is the fact that the consistency piece. I think that's my new, and really understanding that we all have to lean into this space of actually doing the work, right? Like it's not enough to know what you need to do. You have to actually apply it. So I would say that's my new.
Right.
You have the knowledge, apply it.
Yeah.
Apply it.
Yeah.
Period. Because we can know.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
one of me, it was resources, right? You have the resources, so use them. So that makes 100% sense to me.
Because one of the things they always say is like when you know better, you do better, and like that's not always true.
Right.
You can know better and still do the same thing because
and I do.
It feels comfortable.
Right. Yeah. Oh, facts. So my new is this habit app that I've been using. It's literally called Habit, and let's see if it'll. There we go. And so it allows you just the ability to go and put the habits that you want to focus on, and you can put the frequency. So whether it's daily, every other day, But that's been very helpful. I started that last month in May because I was like, I need to just be intentional. And so I say that I want to work on stretching after my workouts, but I'm just like leaving. So this has been helpful to stay on track. And then it does show you, it keeps all of your information, all of your habits. So it shows you how many days you reached all of your habits and things like that. And so that's been helpful because it's that accountability piece that you were kind of talking about, you know, and I can go ahead and say that whew, we know what we need to do, right? But sometimes because of that high functioning depression, we don't really do it, right? We're just kind of like, oh, after this long day, I'm gonna just lay it on down. And sometimes that is great, but sometimes we have things that we want to achieve, then that can be a hindrance. And so if you haven't guessed, we are going to do a little talk about high functioning depression because it is something that you might not even realize you are struggling with, because you're like, well, I'm still getting everything done, but it's like, but you're not happy, and you are isolating yourself. You're doing your work and you're coming home and just kind of falling apart. And so for me, this last Mercury in retrograde, it was very, very, very chaotic. And my high functioning depression just turned into like barely functioning depression. And so I think it's very important to just talk about it and be as transparent and as informative as possible, because there is a lot of value in validation, right? And letting people know that how you're feeling is valid and it's real, and you're not the only person that's feeling that way, right? So does anyone want to provide the folks with the definition of like high functioning depression?
I can talk about how I explain it to my clients. So I usually first explain high functioning depression as clinically it's really called persistent depressive disorder, right? Because it's important to understand that we don't recognize high functioning depression in the DSM-5, which unfortunately is our go-to. So I first of all explain it with that and give a name to it, and then explain that in what we would call it is high functioning depression. And I explain a lot of it is around the symptoms that one might experience. So we're really talking about you're having the symptoms of depression, but they appear to be less severe than what we typically talk about depression looks like. So instead of maybe laying in the bed all day or being behind dark curtains all day, it may be that you struggle with getting up in the morning. It may mean that you have to literally coach yourself to get up out of the bed every single day. It might mean that you are sitting at work or you're sitting in traffic and you're having a flood of negative self-talk that's impacting how you show up for the day or how you're engaging, or you're experiencing anxiety after having a certain meeting, right? So it's more of the symptoms that we think about when we think about depression, but you're still able to keep it going. And I always say going in air quotes because you are still able to maneuver throughout the day, but at what cost?
Right. Yeah. Have either of you been kind of experiencing this or have had any experience in this?
My entire life.
Talk about it.
Had no idea, right? Like it's interesting when you are a high achieving Black woman, right?
And so talking to me.
Right. So you're a high achieving Black woman, you are in the advanced honors classes, you're doing all of these things. And so because you're getting good grades and you participate and you do all of this, people never stop to ask you, like, are you okay? right? Like just assume they're like, oh, you're smart, you,
Right.
ooh, ooh, ooh.
You're successful.
You're successful. What's the, people never stop to be like, how is this child doing? Why is this
Right.
child 4 and 5 grade levels ahead? Is it just because of their intellect, or is it something else that's
Right.
going on? Right.
Right.
And so growing up and knowing that like, I have all of these external achievements, right? But like, I still don't feel good.
Right.
Like, something doesn't feel right. But like, I don't get to talk about it because I'm not like the kids over here who have to be separated from the class, and I'm not like the kids over here that are taking medication, right? But like, my grades are good, my attendance is perfect, I'm participating in all of these extracurricular, and I still feel like completely numb inside. So it teaches us that like people really only care about what they see on the outside. So we continue, and when you are high achieving, that's what you do. You just keep doing what you know has to happen in order to get that praise, to get that validation, and like, keep it pushing. And then one day you'll be like, well, damn, what is going on?
Right.
I am exhausted. Yeah. Bitch, I could run my, like, what is going on?
What's up? What's happening?
What is sis? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then when you try to have that conversation, right? People are like, oh, but like, you've gone to this school and you've done this and you, girl, what? Hello, save me, help me.
Help.
So I think that's like, you know, it really stems from childhood, and we don't really give that a whole lot of credit all the time. Like, that's where it starts. You do well, you perform well. People don't ask questions. People don't ask you how you doing. Then you grow up and you do the same thing in corporate America or in academia. You just show up and you do, but then you go home and you're like exhausted, or you struggle to get out the bed, or you're accomplishing all these things and you're continuously telling yourself that you're not doing enough, or you got to do better, or
oh my God,
somebody better.
So you was in my therapy session.
Listen, I'm just telling you what be going on in my head.
Yes,
it's
I
hard.
mean that
it's hard.
It is. It really is. Because unlike that physical illness, like mental illness, sometimes you can't see, right? And so, especially being in the helping profession, people deem you as having everything together. And for the most part, we do, but we definitely be like struggling, you know? And I think I tweeted about this, you know, that it's okay to reach out to your strong friends. It's definitely okay to reach out to your therapist friends, you know, because it's a lot going on in the world. And for us to be kind of constantly triggered and then having to help other people, you know, when we are in the midst of the trenches ourselves, it can definitely feel hard. And that's why it's super important to have a therapist. You know, I said earlier, I got a new therapist and it's been great, but I hadn't had a therapist since December, and life was lifing, you know? And so I can only do so much. Right. I'm like, okay, do some self-care. But at what point, you know, do you need to go and seek therapy? You know, because there's only so much self-care that you can do that can make you feel good in the moment, right? But if you're not having that space to talk about the feelings that you have, you know, the things that are going through your mind on the daily basis, then you're not really doing the work.
Right.
No, I want to jump on unbiased space.
Yes.
And how important that is, the unbiased of it. A lot of times in our culture, we're told to take it to the altar. Speak with, you know, grandma, mom, auntie, cousin, whoever it may be, your best friend. Mm-hmm. But when someone is not trained to, you know, help you maneuver through things, and they're just looking at you through the scope of like, girl, I know it all, then that bias does play a part in it. And when you're bringing something so vulnerable to our loved ones. And while they're dealing with their own things, they're not,
Right.
the bias is real.
Right.
To piggyback off of y'all, I feel like especially my entire adulthood, has just been a high functioning depression symptoms.
Yeah.
And when I started grad school, I started February 2020, not knowing that March 2020, shit was about to
Right.
get real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to start and have that imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing, and mind you, this is like the best I've done in school, the highest grades I've gotten. And at one part, it was very validating of I'm in the right space. I finally am where I'm supposed to be. I'm interested in school and not just doing it because I have strict parents that have high expectations for me. Then you get to a point where the world, it's like everything around you is just crushing almost. You might feel
Right.
good about something going on in your day, but then you can turn on any channel at any given point and your neighbor is going through something terrible,
Mm-hmm.
and just the state of the world that it's in. I just, yeah, there are still days where it's slow getting out the bed, or at first you roll over and you want to look at your phone. What's on Twitter? What new bulletin is posted, and then it's 30 minutes past and you're in the same spot.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's why I definitely feel like it's important to kind of not get on your phone first thing in the morning, just because you don't know what the hell didn't happen overnight, and you don't want to have some tragic thing be the first thing that you see waking up, especially when you're in a depressive state, because then it's like, well, fuck it. Why try?
Yeah.
The world sucks.
On top of all the stuff that you're already going through
Right.
in your world.
Right. It's hard. And I was, go ahead.
Real quick off of something you said, Jasmine with the E. You said the unbiased part, and I think that's really important too, because
Right.
when you are experiencing these symptoms, what I've noticed is that family around you, especially when you're high achieving, right? Well, you have this and you have that. Like, there's
Right.
nothing wrong with you. And then because
Right.
you're minimizing your experiences, you start to then minimize them. And then you push them off like there's nothing wrong. But something don't feel right. But no, other people have it worse. Or this person is going through this, but this
Right.
is this. I make this amount, I do this, I do that. No, I'm just complaining, or I'm just lazy, or whatever the case may be. And it really fuels these negative beliefs that we have about ourselves that then fuels the depression.
Right.
Yeah. I had to
Right.
come to terms with, am I depressed or am I lazy? And for years it was lazy. And it was my parents' voices, in my mind, reminding myself that I'm junky or I'm lazy. And then finally getting to a point of realizing I'm depressed.
Right.
And then once you come to that term, then you can make the decision of, well, first you need to get in therapy.
Right.
But then you make the decision, do you want to be on medication or not? And those are things that even in the last few years that I've had to kind of personally come to terms with.
Right. And, depression is a chemical imbalance. And so sometimes that medication is helpful. Sometimes it can be treated with therapy and you good, maybe a little weed and you good. But sometimes you need to have that medication and that's fine. If that is something that will help you to feel motivated, will help you to be able to find some positives in your life, then, that's what needs to happen, right? And we need to abolish the stigma, because there are so many people that are suffering with depression, with anxiety, and are going unchecked because the stigma. And it's like, that you could actually have a better quality in life if you just kind of looked at it.
But that takes a certain level of honesty that I
It
don't, and a
does.
certain level of self-awareness that, if I'm being honest, I don't think a lot of us have. And I think it stems from this belief, like Jasmine would said, of like, being lazy. So like you literally know
Right.
that something doesn't feel good. You notice that something is off. Oh, well, it must just be because I'm lazy. And I believe this because
Right.
my parents have instilled in me that I don't get to rest. They've instilled in me that I need to be
Right.
productive. I need to always be doing. I can't sit down if the dishes are in the sink. I got to hand wash the dishes. I can't put them in a dishwasher. Right? Like there's all of these things.
We have the same childhood.
Most
That's
of
what
us
it's
have had the
giving.
same childhood, but raised by different
Right.
people.
It's such a cultural thing
Yes,
that we could.
it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But like then you grow up and you're like, oh, I'm just being
Definitely.
lazy. And it's like, well, we gotta examine
Right.
the evidence. Like you just work 12 plus hours, you in a grad school program, you got a baby, you have a partner, you're doing all of these things. Like, are you lazy or are you fucking tired? And like, are you
And
tired?
is that okay?
Right. Like, okay, that was all. I just wanted to say something about that.
So I grew up going to church, with my grandmother, parents, like, regularly. As an adult now, I really enjoy going in for my small group, which is just a collective of women that are in the same stage of life. And there's Bible teaching, and it's fellowship. That's what I really like.
Mhm.
And last week it was said, even God rested on the seventh day. Like, give yourself a break.
Right.
Give
Right.
yourself a break. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
And in the days of hustle culture, people are always saying like, oh, you gotta hustle, grind in your 20s so you could shop. Like, bruh,
I'm exhausted in my 20s
I'm
already.
fucking fighting for my life. Okay.
Yeah.
And y'all motherfuckers got the nerve to get on Twitter and tell me I'm doing shit because I'm not up at 4:30 in the morning doing stocks and doing crypto.
Listen,
Oh,
as somebody who has been a victim of hustle culture, and I really used to believe that shit too, right? Like I literally would get
Right.
up at 4 in the morning and go to bed close to midnight. And it was like my day was packed with all of this. Like I gotta get it out the mud. Like I gotta start. Bruh. When I
you're
say
waking
I
up
am,
3 a.m. on the East Coast?
yeah, 4:30 a.m. Yeah.
It's a hell no for me.
And like I did that consistently for 10 plus years of like I gotta get it. Like I gotta be out here getting it out the mud.
Oh,
And I gotta pick the
wow.
hardest jobs and I gotta add on to it because like girl,
Right.
right? And it wasn't even just like the hustle mentality, it was literally survival. Like we've all been taught in some way, shape, or form that we gotta work 12
Mhm.
times harder than Susie
Right.
or Becky or whoever, right? Like we gotta work harder. So like we fighting and we gonna get it out the mud. But what we tend to do is like we bring on more struggle because we've been
Right.
taught that we gotta struggle in order to be successful.
Right.
It's all a scam. That was
And we don't.
we don't. It's a scam.
It is a scam. It is a bamboozlement, you know? Because seriously, it's like your 20s are such a pivotal time in your life, right? You are a mini adult. I say mini because usually we don't have too many responsibilities, you know? And so we are trying to figure out who we are away from our parents, get an education, still have a social life, and that depression can come and just, fuck things up, make you make a little choice that maybe you wouldn't have made, maybe get a little more drunk than you should have a lot of times. But it's such a pivotal time in our lives. And so to be spending our time grinding and doing all this, it's just like, when do you stop?
Right.
Yeah.
And my therapist asked me a great question. She was like, what is the price that you get from working so hard? I said,
Right.
I don't know.
Put it that way.
Or at what cost? Like you doing all this and for what? What's the point? If you working so hard to do all of these things and then your body shut down, what the hell was the point? Are you missing
Right.
moments with your
And they
child? Are you
can't.
missing moments with your partner?
Mm,
That was the point.
Yeah.
right. Right. And sometimes, we can just try and focus all of our attention to that grind, right? My husband is someone who, whenever he was depressed, he would just get another job.
Hmm. Okay.
What? So you mean you just go work it away? And that brings me to that song by Solange, Cranes in the Sky. Try to work it away, try to fuck it. Like, you have to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But
And
why?
that's why therapy is so helpful.
Hmm.
Why? Because if not, then you're going to keep doing the same thing, the same cycle, right? They said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm.
What you've been doing, how you've been moving through life hasn't been helpful, right? Your mental health has been suffering. And so sometimes we just have to take a different approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you need help figuring that out, therapy is a great place to start because you do have that unbiased opinion. You have someone there that gets it. Hopefully, that's why that's why the Black therapists are so helpful. I'm not saying that any other therapist is not helpful, but what I'm saying is that Black therapists, at me as a Black therapist, I am able to help everyone.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Trans people, gay, lesbian, pan, Black, white, old, young, Mexican. Like, I can build that rapport and I can help you, get through it. And that's why it's so important to find a therapist that you can connect with.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't connect with your therapist, honey, it's
It
a
ain't
waste
gonna
of
happen.
time.
Yeah.
And money.
It'll never
Waste
happen.
of time and money. Okay.
Yeah.
I asked why because a lot of times what I've noticed is, well, it got me to this point. And I even had this whole
Right.
conversation with myself, right? Like, well, shit,
Mm.
got you to this point. So, like, it must work, right?
It
Like,
can't be that bad.
can't be that bad. But then it's like, okay, but I'm also stuck at this point,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So, like, we have to be willing to acknowledge that, yes, some of the maladaptive behaviors that we have are helpful. They are. And
Right.
we learn them,
Right.
we use them because they allow us to move through the day. Okay. But then they only get us to a certain point. And then we have to be willing to
Right.
figure out, okay, what is it that I need to do next? Or what is it that I need to do differently so that I can move
Right.
this stuck point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having that valid self-awareness helps with that.
Right.
And understanding that your habits, your routine, those matter. And watching yourself. So if you're struggling to, I know touching on like working so much, right?
Mhm.
But let's say you're working so much, you finally get an off day. You notice that each off day, whether it be back to back or days in between, depending on your schedule, that you struggle to get out of bed. And then when you do get out of bed, you go immediately to the couch and
Right.
you're just there for how many ever hours. And so you could be high functioning all week when other eyes are on you, there's expectation.
Right.
But especially, let's say you don't have kids, you don't have a partner, you may live alone, may have roommates that you're not really close with, then you could easily just fall into, well, no one's watching, so now I can sink
Mm.
into myself. And then that is where the depression itself exposes, that
Right.
it is there under the surface.
Right. Yeah.
I would even say the response to that too, right? So like I spent my whole off day laying around. Damn, I must be lazy.
Right.
Or,
Right.
I'm
You
not
start
doing
playing
enough.
games with yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why am I not moving?
Right.
There's a show called Maid, MAID, on Netflix.
Oh, I watched it.
Okay. Then you know the episode that it depicts her depression, where she was struggling to get everything set for her and her daughter. I watched it a long time ago and I binged it. So I think she
Right.
got right there and it was, taken from. I don't want to, there's a spoiler, but there's a depiction of her depression, and it's her starting in the couch, laying there. People are kind of, walking by her, passing by her, and she sinks into the couch and kind of goes under. I mean, I was watching that and I was like, man, that is an accurate depiction of depression.
Right. Don't you love when the media actually has like a good depiction of mental illness? I hate when they have it looking crazy. Like, bruh, you got people putting this mess in their songs and thinking that this is exactly what it is, and mistaking the symptoms that they do have because it's like, oh well, that's not what I saw on TV.
Which goes back to that self-awareness piece. Jasmine with the E
Right.
said most people are not self-aware.
Yeah.
We're keeping it a stat because we've been taught like, forget what you got going on, like you got shit to do, right? Especially Black women.
Right.
I don't got time to think about how I feel or feel my feelings, bitch. I got shit to do, right? So like when you keep doing that, you're not going to be self-aware. Okay, yeah, I might have felt some discomfort. My chest might be tight. I might be sad, but like, I got shit to do.
Whatever. The show goes on. I still got to go do this, got to do that. Yeah. And that is very true. People do lack that basic sense of self-awareness, and that's why it's super important to have some check-in questions that you ask throughout the week. Really, why did I react that way? What they said or how I heard it? What they say triggered me? That is the missing piece that a lot of people don't really tell. How you been emotionally? What's going on? But if you've never been in a space where you're forced to kind of confront your feelings and talk about how you feel, then you're not going to be able to ask yourself those questions or find value in asking yourself that. Why do I care? I'm okay. I was a little sad, but I got this 8-hour shift.
Yep.
I'll be crying, ladies. Like, oh gosh.
I rather right? Honest have good gas mileage, y'all.
And you have to get premium. So how about that?
How all the Honda drivers are feeling right now with these gas prices.
Right. Because it really is. So just what sort of coping skills that we would suggest to people that are dealing with persistent depressive disorder. I'll tell you some of my favorite. One, therapy. Okay. That's my shit. Every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, I'm ready to meet with my girl Jasmine. Okay.
Period.
Therapy. One. Two, always including self-care throughout your day. And I have a video that I did, and I haven't even done, but go follow me on the video where I talk about just ways to at self-care in your daily routine, because people are like, oh, I don't have time for self-care, You do have time to play music while you're showering and get a little groove going. Okay, you do have time for that. You do have time to throw a face. Oh,
here.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Yes.
It literally just stopped. Sorry.
Oh.
I don't know what happened. Well, the last thing I heard was you have time to put music into your day.
Oh, yes. And then I just said positive affirmations,
Okay.
you know, affirming that positivity over yourself, over your day. You know, I tell people this all the time. When I was pregnant, every single day I lit Palo Santo and I said happy, healthy. And if you follow on Instagram, you see that my baby is so happy and so healthy, you know. And so positive affirmations do work.
Yes. Mhm.
I would just say to piggyback off of that, just practice that self-awareness. Make sure, especially as Black women, that you're just taking time to check in with yourself. Even if it starts with just the 2 minutes that you brush your teeth in the morning. Just
Right.
check in with yourself, reaffirm yourself, validate yourself. I wrote down there's value to validation because I really like
I
Jasmine.
meant to tweet that the other day.
Mhm. And I would just say really paying attention to your thoughts and the story that you're telling yourself. I think that is going to be one of the key things, and being very mindful of the language that you're using, right? Is it I have to get up, right? Or
Right.
I get to get up, or I have to
Right.
work out, or it's an opportunity for me to work out
Right.
today, right? It's a privilege, in the words of one of my favorite Peloton instructors, right? Like,
Who?
I love Jess.
Jess Sims, right?
I love Jess Sims.
She's so crazy, but I love her.
So one of her things is like, it's an opportunity, it's a privilege to
Right.
be here
Right.
in this moment. I think they all say that, but
Right.
and that's important because it is an opportunity. It is a privilege, even when it doesn't feel like it. Because if I'm keeping it
Right.
a majority of the time working out life, sometimes it doesn't feel like a privilege, right? Because we're boggled down by all of these things that we gotta do, need to do on the to-do list. And the reality is,
Right.
oh, this shit is a privilege. It is an
Right.
opportunity that we have, but we have to be mindful of how we're showing up in those moments. And then I would also
Right.
say, knowing what your triggers are is important.
Mm-hmm.
Paying attention to the
Yes.
people that you're around, how you feel at work around certain coworkers, how you feel around certain friends, the time of day,
Mm-hmm.
like really paying attention to some of those triggers so that then you can adjust based on what those triggers are.
Right. Yes. Period. Couldn't say
Yeah.
it better myself. Because you can't address what you don't identify.
Sure can.
Right.
So my baby is crying, y'all.
That's a wrap.
That is gonna be a wrap, but I do just want to come up with some commitments so that we can kind of keep each other accountable as we are continuing to do the work. So I can start with the commitment, or do either of you want to start?
Go ahead. Let me see what you got.
Okay, so my commitment for this week is just going to be simple. I am going to drink my gallon of water every day because I did slack off. It's so crazy how I could drink like a couple seltzers, but finishing my gallon of water was a challenge. So I'm just going to focus on staying hydrated because I know that I feel better when I am.
Nice. For me, that's actually one of mine too. I really want to look and feel my best on my 30th, and that's not going to be, 16-inch waist by then. But what I can do in the meantime is just that self-care, that self-love, and just doing the things I know that are going to bring that forth to me and that good energy. Yeah, which starts with hydrating.
Right. And then what you got, girl?
My commitment for the week is going to be to continue to build in. One of the things I teach my clients too, Jasmine without an E, is making sure that they are factoring in self-care throughout the day. So I think that that's one thing that I want to make sure that I maintain this week. Like, nope, I'm not going to use my break to finish a note or to respond to an email, but I'm going to use this break to do something that feels good for me, something that I need for me. So that's my commitment for this week. Ooh.
I love that. I love it. Well, I hope that y'all got something good out of this conversation. This is our first of many podcasts. And we just really wanted to touch on that depression piece because so many of us do suffer from it. And so you're not alone. Ask yourself those check-in questions. Get you a therapist. Okay, therapy for Black girls is a great resource. I'm on there. I'm sure you on there? Yeah, I'm sure America's on there. Like, we on there. Okay. But I just want to remind you that you can drink the gallon of the water every day. You can go for a hike every day. You can work out every day. But if you're ignoring the things going on in your head and in your heart, then you're still not truly healthy. So go on ahead and seek therapy. We all out here doing it, okay? We 3 years into the pandemic. We all need it.
Period.
Gotcha.
So yeah, take care and be great. And we will see you next episode.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.